Hello everyone, welcome back to Coach Craig Sports. Today we're going to be talking about some head coaching openings. So these are the positions that are available right now, teams that don't have a head coach. So I'm going to start out with my favorite team, that's the Texans. And before we get going into it, we had some big news today. Doug Pederson, the head coach, or should I say previous head coach now of the Philadelphia Eagles, he was fired today, so he's been let go. He is a guy that could potentially work his way into some other head coaching opportunities for the teams that have a position that's open, and it also creates an opportunity for the Eagles to find a new head coach as well. So we'll be talking about that one in the future. And the biggest thing about Doug Pederson, the one that he's probably rumored to the most, is that Jets head coach opening, because he does have some history with the GM there, Joe Douglas. But without getting too much into that, we'll get into the main focus of today's video, and that is the Houston Texans head coaching vacancy. So I'm on NFLTradeRumors.com. If you guys aren't familiar with this site, be sure to check it out. Some good news that comes out from there as well. So these are the names that they have listed. So they're guys that have either been interviewed, requested an interview, or they have been linked to the job for whatever reason. First off is Jim Caldwell, and he is obviously been known as the former Lions coach, the former Colts coach, of course. I wrote down notes for each of the main head coaching candidates. In recent days, there's been two more that have been added to the Texans list since I first started taking my notes, so I did bring up both the Wikipedia pages for them, just to kind of give you guys their background overall. But for Jim Caldwell, he is 65 years old right now. He played his college football at Iowa. He was a defensive back there. He's kind of been all over the place as far as his coaching career goes. Started off as a wide receivers coach. Then he ended up as a quarterback coach, head coach at Wake Forest. He quarterback coach, assistant head coach in the NFL. Became that Colts head coach after Tony Dungy. You know, he had some success there. The one year that Peyton Manning was out, they went 2-14. He unfortunately got fired after that season. We can debate all we want if that was fair or not, but you know, he's got some good head coaching experience. He was with the Ravens for a little bit. After that as their offensive coordinator. Then with the Lions as their head coach. Had some pretty good success with the Lions, but they decided to get rid of him and bring in Matt Patricia. We all know how that worked out. And then last year with the Dolphins, he was kind of their quarterback coach, assistant head coach, until he had some health concerns. The biggest question I have with Jim Caldwell is he healthy enough to be a head coach again at this level? Because we know he has had success at this before. I think he's definitely a viable candidate at this point in time. Next up, we got Marvin Lewis, who obviously is the former Bengals head coach, but he's been around coaching for a while as well. He started off in the college ranks, Idaho State, Long Beach State, New Mexico, Pittsburgh, as linebackers coach, then moved on to the Pittsburgh Steelers as their linebackers coach, defensive coordinator for the Ravens, then the defensive coordinator for what was the Washington Redskins at that time. Then he was the Bengals head coach from 2003 to 2018. Spent some time the last 2 years with Arizona State, helping out his buddy Herm Edwards down there as well. So definitely a guy that's got a lot of experience. He would probably not be one of my preferred options, but you could definitely do a lot worse. Then next up, we got Titans offensive coordinator Arthur Smith. This is a name that's pretty popular out there and not one that I think is going to be a good hire for any team that does hire him at this point in time. Does that mean he won't be a good head coach at some point in the future? I'm not going to say that. But I think at this point in time, he's a little too young, a little too inexperienced, might not be able to command the presence that you need from your head coach. So Arthur Smith, he's 38 years old, started off his coaching career at the University of North Carolina as a graduate assistant. He's with the Redskins as a defensive quality assistant, then moved on to Ole Miss as a defensive intern and administrative assistant, oddly enough. And then he's been with the Titans since 2011. He's filled quite a wide variety of roles. Defensive quality assistant, offensive line, and tight end coach, and then he's been the offensive coordinator for the Titans for the past 2 seasons. He's ran a pretty effective offense. Whether or not that will translate to being a head coach remains to be seen, but I think he's a guy that's probably a year or two away from really becoming a head coach in order to be successful at it. But he's definitely a name that's popular with a lot of teams that have head coaching openings right now. And then the next one that we had was Matt Eberflus. He's the current defensive coordinator for the Indianapolis Colts. They requested an interview with him. He declined, so he's not going to be going there. So we're not going to go too much into detail with him. Then we got Panthers offensive coordinator Joe Brady, who did interview with the Texans. However, it's been rumored today that he is going to be the next Falcons head coach. We'll talk a little bit about him still, though. So Joe Brady is 31 years young. He would be the youngest head coach in the National Football League if he does take a head coaching position this season. Reminds us a lot of Sean McVay in that way, coming in as a very, very young coach. But he is somebody that does have quite a bit of experience as well. He's been coaching since 2013. He started out with William & Mary, linebacker coach there. Went to Penn State as a graduate assistant for 2 years. Then he became an offensive assistant with the Saints. Obviously, we all know the run that he helped Joe Burrow with last year as the passing game coordinator and wide receiver coach at LSU. And then this year, he's been the Panthers offensive coordinator. So definitely a bright, young offensive mind. He's a guy, to me, that I think is probably a year away from being a really good coach. Probably I'd like to see him stay as an offensive coordinator for one more year, kind of build up that rapport. It's hard being a young coach going into some teams as well. But if he goes in somewhere, if he has the right people around him, he definitely has a chance to succeed. It doesn't sound like it's going to be with the Texans. Sounds like it's likely to be with the Falcons. Next up, we have offensive coordinator Tim Kelly. So he is the current offensive coordinator for the Texans. He ran a pretty good offense after Bill O'Brien left. I know the Texans like Tim Kelly a lot. And I don't think he's ready to be a head coach at this point in time. I'd like to see him stay around as the offensive coordinator if we can. But that really just depends on who they bring in as the head coach. Like I said, I don't think he's ready to be a head coach at this point in time. So we're going to look at Tim Kelly real quick. I got his Wikipedia page up as well because he's one of the newer candidates. I know they did like him, but I didn't think it was going to be this soon. So he went to college at Eastern Illinois. He's 34 years young, so pretty young guy as well. He's kind of coached a little bit in the college ranks, Illinois Wesleyan, Minnesota State. He's actually a defensive coordinator and defensive line coach there. I believe he did play defensive tackle in college. Graduate assistant at Ball State, graduate assistant at Penn State. Offensive quality control coach with the Texans. And then became an assistant offensive line coach, tight end coach, and then offensive coordinator last year, and then offensive coordinator and quarterback coach this year. So definitely has a lot of experience on both sides of the ball. He's probably a guy that could get an opportunity at some point in time, but I'd like to see him remain as an offensive coordinator at this point in time. The next up, we got Leslie Frazier, who's got an interview scheduled now, and he's a guy that I honestly thought should get a second chance at being a head coach. Like the record wasn't the best with the Vikings. He did take them to the playoffs one year. He's definitely a guy, though, that he kind of comes in and stabilizes things. And with a team like the Texans, that's really what you need. He's a defensive mind, though, too. But you really see what he's done with this Buffalo Bills defense over the past couple seasons. And he's really helped elevate their game to the next level. So he's definitely somebody that I would consider for this position. So let's look at Leslie Frazier's background real quick. He went to Alcorn State as a player, ended up playing with the Bears. He won a Super Bowl there as well. And then as a coach, he was at Trinity International University. I'm going to be honest, I've never heard of that school before, but he was a head coach there for about 9 years. University of Illinois, defensive backs coach, then was with the Philadelphia Eagles as a defensive backs coach. Cincinnati Bengals defensive coordinator, Colts defensive assistant, defensive backs coach. Moved on to the Vikings defensive coordinator, assistant head coach, became the interim coach, and then the head coach for 3 years. Then he went on to Tampa to be a defensive coordinator, Baltimore Ravens secondary coach, and then since 2017 with the Buffalo Bills as their assistant head coach and defensive coordinator. So Leslie Frazier is someone who really does have a lot of experience. He's had experience being a head coach before, and like I said, he just kind of comes in, brings that presence, and kind of puts everything together. I think he'd be a good fit for the Texans, especially after what we lived through with Bill O'Brien and his fiery personality that he was just trying to get into fights with everyone, it seemed like. Then last but not least, we got the Ravens assistant head coach / wide receivers coach, David Culley, who honestly I didn't know much about before today. So we're going to look at his Wikipedia page. He's really, really been all over the place. Honestly, if you look at this, there's not even much about him. Like, we know he went to Vanderbilt for college, 65 years old. He was at Austin Peay as a running backs coach, Vanderbilt as a wide receivers coach, Middle Tennessee State's quarterback and running back coach, Chattanooga wide receiver coach, Southwestern Louisiana quarterbacks coach, Texas El Paso offensive coordinator, running backs coach, and wide receivers coach. So he did it all there. Then with Texas A&M wide receivers coach, and then he's been with the Buccaneers, the Steelers, the Eagles, the Chiefs, the Bills, and the Ravens. pretty much been a wide receivers coach all the way across the board. Buffalo Bills, he was the quarterback coach there as well. So definitely a guy that's got a lot of experience, but mainly as a position coach. So not somebody I'd be too excited about bringing in. But overall, the two guys that really stand out to me for this list, I think, are going to be Jim Caldwell and Leslie Frazier. Not sure if that's what will stand out for the Texans GM, but they're both mild-mannered guys that have a stabilizing presence. They can kind of try to bring this team together, build something here, and they're two guys that have been head coaches before, so they know what it takes. And in the case of Jim Caldwell, he's a guy that's been to the playoffs multiple times. He's a very good offensive mind. The only question I really have with him is his health. If it was up to me, I'd probably go with one of these two guys. I know there's been the whole Deshaun Watson scenario where he's supposedly upset because they didn't interview or request an interview with Eric Bieniemy. We can dig into that story a whole bunch, but there's also rumors out there that Bieniemy was not interested in the Texans job either. But the Texans still could have sent out a request, and then he could have just declined it like Matt Eberflus of the Colts did. But with that being said, these are my thoughts on the head coaching opening for the Texans. Like I said, the Texans are my favorite team. Hopefully you guys all enjoyed this video. Be sure to leave your thoughts down in the comments as to who you think the next head coach of the Texans will be. I'm very interested to see what you guys think. I know it's kind of a messy situation, but it can only get better as compared to what we had in Bill O'Brien. But with that being said, if you guys liked and enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up. I greatly, greatly appreciate it. Like I said, this is something that's new for the channel. Tomorrow I'm going to go over the Atlanta Falcons head coaching vacancy. If we hear that Joe Brady becomes the head coach or someone else becomes the head coach before that, I will also mention that in the video, and then I'll talk about who the other candidates were if that is the case. But the plan for this week is just going through each head coaching vacancy, putting out about one video a day, and just breaking down the candidates that are involved, who I think would be a good fit, and who I think is going to end up getting hired. If you guys are new to my channel, please consider subscribing. I'd greatly appreciate it. It really helps build the community that we're trying to build here at Coach Craig Sports, and that's really one for you, the viewers. Like I said, typically I do fantasy football content. I'm going to be doing some more fantasy football news, stuff like this. Going into the off season, since there's not as much fantasy football content to put out. In the coming weeks, I will also look at who my breakout picks were going into the season, see how they panned out. Looking back at some of my bold predictions, just kind of giving you guys an update overall. I'll also look at my rankings, see the players that I was most accurate about, and my biggest misses as well, and share them with you guys. But with that being said, if you are a new or current subscriber who has not already done so, also hit that notification bell down below. It'll let you know every single time I put up a new video. And with that being said, I hope you guys truly enjoyed this video today. If you are a fellow Texans fan, please be sure to let me know what you think of the head coaching situation, who you think is going to be the next head coach of the Texans, and the reason that you would like that person to be the new head coach as well. But with that being said, that's all we got for today's video, and I hope you all have a great, great rest of your day.